You would never know it. She got off the train and walked with no help from the station to the WFM offices. And here's a picture. These are actual people. There's Mother Jones and Guy Miller at the head of the parade. So you can see what she looked like when she was in Calumet. When she got there, she sat down in a rocking chair they had for her and talked to all of us. The newspapermen asked her a lot of questions. I wish I had paper and a pencil like they did. She told us that there's a lot of fun in life and we do not have to take the sour. Strikes are great fun for her. She said she is proud to be a socialist because they help the working men. She said if working men use their votes the right way, we would not have a governor who sent soldiers to break a strike. She feels the soldiers have no business here because this is an industrial problem, not a revolution. She admitted she was tired and told everyone she would give a speech tomorrow. I wish I could remember more of what she said. I think I will wait until after her speeches to write more. I will go to the library and read several different papers again. Yenny and Katri have both outgrown their shoes. We go barefoot a lot of the time, but we must wear shoes for church. Mama cut open the ends of their shoes so their toes stuck out. Katri started to giggle and we all laughed. This will not do, Mama said. She dug through her rag bag to find scraps about the same color as their shoes. She mixed up a little flour and water paste and glued the cloth carefully over the top of the end and into the bottom of the shoe to cover their toes. She looked at me. Let me have a look at yours, Emma. I didn't think mine were very bad, so I said, mine still fit. Let me look anyway. I did not want to, but I sat down in the kitchen chair and held up my feet. How long have you been walking around with these big holes in the soles? She asked me. I shrugged my shoulders. Mama put her hands on her hips and sighed. We were all quiet for a minute. Then she smiled at me and said, see if you can find some cardboard. I went to the cowshed and came back with an empty feed sack. We do not have any boxes, I said. Mama looked at the sack. She traced around my shoes, cut two soles for each foot, pasted them together, and pasted them inside my shoes. There, that should help when you walk to Mr. Edwards' store. Try to bring home any old boxes he might throw away. I think Papa has holes in his shoes, too. When I finish the first rag rug, I'll try to sell it for enough to buy some shoes at the second-hand store. Thursday, August 7th. My feelings have been so mixed up lately. It is something like this. When I was little, I used to run down the grassy side of our hill for the joy of feeling the wind in my face, almost like I was flying. I only saw the green grass and smelt sweet clover as I tumbled down at the bottom. Nowadays, I drag my way back up Bridge Street, and all I see are dingy gray houses. I wish I could be a little girl again, but Mother Jones's speeches and the parades the last 2 days have helped me see that things can be both gray and green. The parade yesterday started at the WFM office and went over to the Palestra. The women had made some more banners for the men to carry. Ferris will hear from 18,000 miners on Election Day. We demand an 8-hour day and a minimum wage schedule. Richest mines but poorest miners. The one-man drill. Our agitator. The soldiers were there and the deputies too, but there was no trouble. I took my journal to the library to read the papers. Like the newspaper reporters, I copied the parts of Mother Jones's speech out of all the papers that I think are the most important. And here's another view from the top of the water tower in Swedetown. Company housing, homes like Emma's, occupies the lower half of the photo. A mine shaft and related buildings are in the center. And the single spire of St. Anne's Church appears in the horizon behind the mine hoist building. There's another perspective. I want you to use your brains, not your hands. Your masters want you to use your hands. I see they have the militia up here to take good care of you. The militia loves you dearly. You make the guns and the bayonets, and they got to be used on you. I've had experience with the militia. They're not bad fellows. Washington and Lincoln didn't want the militia. We didn't have the militia in their days. We were Americans then. What's the matter with you fellows? Why don't you elect the right men to public office? You elected a scab governor to bring out the militia and camp on company ground and take care of company property. This ground belongs to you. Don't carry a gun or a pistol. Let the other fellow do that. Use your 2 fists and black out his eyes. Then he can't see to shoot you. You don't need to have to fight here. Just be firm and peaceful. They can't operate the mines without you. Just use your brains and wake up to the fact that you have the power. The stars and stripes shall float in Calumet and all of Michigan over free working men. Even though she used the word men when she spoke, I think she means all of it to be for women and even girls like me, too. Later, she told the men whenever she helps out in a strike, she finds the judges and governors guard the wishes of the people with money. I didn't like what she said about fighting, so I'm glad she told us to be firm and peaceful. She told the men to stand firm and hold out to get what they want. I went out and sat beside Pop on the front steps after supper. What do you think about Mother Jones? I asked him. Most of what she says is good, he told me, but I will never vote for the socialists. If Papa can see some good and some bad, then I guess I can too. The green is like the good, and the gray is like the bad. The world is full of both. Monday, August 11th. A little good news today. Things have settled down enough that Governor Ferris recalled a lot of the troops. Only a bit over half will be left after today. The WFM has started its own newspaper called the Miners Bulletin, but I still must read the other papers and try to see which I believe more. Wednesday, August 13th. Why does bad news always come right after good? Yesterday, one of the remaining soldiers was attacked. He is still alive, but it has turned people against the strike even more. Over 1,000 men had given up and gone back to work. Many more have signed petitions to go back under protection. That is enough for CNH to open the mines and bring up rock again. There are rumors that those staying out on strike may not be allowed back to work. What will happen to my family then? Friday, August 15th. I thought this strike could not get any worse, but it has. They murdered 2 men in Sebreville last evening. Just shot them down for no more than walking down a path everybody used there. Not just WFM members, but lots of people are horrified. And here's the picture of the Sebreville shootings in 1913. And this photo, however, was taken during the winter. And remember, Sebreville is near Painesdale. Everyone who came into Mr. Edwards' store today had something to say about it. Finnish-speaking women told me about how the 2 men were just taking a shortcut, the same path they had always taken home. Company deputies yelled and told them not to take the path, but they did anyway. The company sent 6 men, 4 of them waddies, to the boarding house where the men lived to bring them to the owners for trespassing. These men who guard are not police officers. How can they tell someone to go with them like they are being arrested? When the men refused to go with them, a fight broke out. The deputies started shooting into open windows through the door, not even looking where they shot or caring that there were people in the house. Nobody in that house had a gun or anything. The lady of the house had a little baby. As she tried to escape, a bullet just missed the baby. It left a burn from the gunpowder on the baby's face. Several of the Finnish-speaking women said that they heard Sheriff Cruz let the men who did the shooting escape. The mine managers' wives and other high-class people who live in Laurium had a different story to tell. They said someone in the house started shooting first. Several said the deputies had the right to defend themselves. In all, 4 men got shot. 3 died right away. Another died today in the hospital. One thing is certain, Sheriff Cruz has not arrested anyone yet. One lady came in the store all dressed up in the latest fashions. Her voice was shrill as she told what she had heard. Mr. Edwards sent me into the back room to sweep, but I could still hear her. It's a shame some innocent people were hurt, but those strikers got what they deserved. It is a good thing I was not out there, I thought. I would throw up. All Mr. Edwards said to her was, "Who knows what to think these days?" All afternoon he said similar things, not really agreeing or disagreeing with anyone. I was a bit afraid to speak my mind, but I did anyway, since he had asked me to stay until closing. "Mr. Edwards, what do you really think about the murders?" I asked. "Some of those people said terrible things." "Sit down for a minute, Emma," he said. "Right now I'm not sure what to think. I have learned that what causes the most trouble is when people jump into things before they know all the facts. People react instead of thinking. What happened in Sebreville is a sad example of that. I try to wait until things become more clear before I do or say anything." I nodded. "May I ask you something else?" "Of course." "How can you be so calm with everybody who comes in? So many people came in angry, but they were all right when they left." Mr. Edwards took his pipe out of his pocket, filled and lit it before he said, "If I want to keep all my customers, they must want to come back, so I try not to take sides. Most folks don't really want to hear what I have to say. They just want to talk, so I listen. Once they have gotten it out, they are fine." He patted my back then and I smiled. He also said that from now on he wants me to arrive at noon and stay until closing. I carried another 10 pounds of flour, a loaf of dry bread, and some penny candy home for my sisters. It was a heavy load, and I stopped to rest several times. By the time I got to the library, it was past closing time, so I did not get to see Marie. I wish the mine managers were like Mr. Edwards. Sunday, August 24th. So much has happened lately that Yenny, Katrine, and I nearly missed the thimbleberry season. Thimbleberry bushes have really big leaves, like giant maple leaves, soft as velvet and darker green, but the berries are the worst to pick. The bushes always seem to grow in hard-to-reach places, like the sides of steep hills and stream banks. The bushes also have thorny sorts of stems that tear at your clothes. The berries are something like a raspberry and very sweet. When you pick one, it will fit over the end of your finger like a thimble. Anyway, we went picking a few days right at the end of the season. We came home bruised from slipping and falling down the stream banks and scratched from the rough stems, but we got a pailful. In a way, picking thimbleberries was better than listening to more news about people fighting at the mines. Mama and Papa do not say much, but they are really worried about money. In this first month, no money promised by the WFM has come. Today, Papa came home from the parade and meeting with some news. The union has assessed all its other members around the country $2 per month to help with the strike here. A man and wife here are supposed to get $4 per week. Those with children would get 50 cents more for each child. That would mean our family would get $5.50 a week. Yago would get $3 each week as a single man. None of the money has come yet. Mama pressed her lips together and turned back to stirring the pot of stew on the stove. With so little to expect in strike benefits, I wish we had picked more thimbleberries. Monday, August 25th. Mama left my sisters and me at home today and went to march with Papa. She said we were to pick tomatoes and green beans in the garden and get everything ready for canning. We carried up all the empty jars and top pans from the cellar and washed them. Mama told me to use boiling water to rinse them. Yenny and Katri washed and snapped green beans, and I scalded and peeled a bushel of tomatoes and packed them into jars. By the time Mama got home, we had lots of jars waiting for her. She put 2 big kettles full of water in the stove, screwed the band lids down tight on the tomatoes, and put them in the kettles of water. The boiling water around the jars will cook the tomatoes and seal the lids. She did the green beans a little differently. First, she sprinkled a bit of salt over the beans, added a piece of bacon to the top, and poured in boiling water to fill the jar. She screwed the lids and bands on tight so they were ready for the boiling kettles. All afternoon, the kettles boiled. The minute Mama pulled out one batch of jars with tongs, she put more in, adding water to the kettle whenever it did not come up to the neck of the jars. I hauled in bucket after bucket of water from the pump. Mama kept Yenny and Katri busy hauling in more wood and coal for the stove. Between the sun beating down in the house and the street and the heat from all the stove, our dresses were wringing wet with sweat. Last year on canning days, Mama made ice cream when we finished. Today, she let us shave some ice in the block in the ice box, but we only got a teaspoon of maple syrup to put on it. Yago came home with only 1 small fish today. He said there aren't too many people trying to do the same thing. Mama cut up the fish for tonight's moyaka and added more water and another potato. Papa has started trying to speak English more so he can get better at it. That man named Judge Murphy, what Governor Ferris sent up here, supposed to see what goes on, told what he found out. Guess he really got on to company men when they don't see him last week, him being the governor's man and all. Anyway, he's not to talk about the WFM. Then Papa got tired of trying to think of the words he needed, so he went back to finish. He said Murphy sent his reporter to report to Governor Ferris. The report said that our men have real grievances and the company managers do treat some men unfairly. It said our men were entitled to some of what they were asking for. Murphy said he thinks the state will have to leave the National Guard troops up here for some time. Mama asked Papa if he wanted another bowl of stew. He usually eats 2 or 3 bowls. Papa said he was quite full, but I think he wanted to leave more for the rest of us. He got up and went up to the front steps. I went out and sat beside him when we finished the dishes. Papa, tell me true, I said. Is the strike going to last a lot longer? He patted my back and said, "I'm afraid so, but don't you worry about it." Even though Papa